Good afternoon. It's Monday, the 4th of January 2021, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. Your host today, Mike Robinson, myself, Brian Gerrish, and we're delighted to be joined by David Scott, bringing us northern exposure from north of the border. And a bit chilly in this studio, Mike.
Yeah, well, it'll warm up with the lights, but did you enjoy your Christmas break?
Under lockdown, there were certain limitations, so some of it was enjoyable, some of it wasn't, because I wasn't able to fully socialise and integrate with family and friends. But of course, I was just one of millions under the new UK curfew.
Well, we said in the Christmas special that perhaps censorship and free speech, freedom of speech, would be a key issue for 2021. And, well, 2021 hasn't let us down because the news from this morning is that the Assange extradition has been denied by the High Court, or by the courts. So Julian Assange will not be extradited to the United States at this point in time. The judge blocked this request because of concerns over Assange's mental health and the possibility, sorry, I apologize, the possibility that he would be at risk of committing suicide in the United States. However, the judge, Vanessa Bretzer, said this, that should he be found guilty, should he have been found guilty of the offences in the United States, that would amount to offences in this jurisdiction that would not be protected by his right to freedom of speech. So the judge finding a way to avoid extradition, but absolutely making the point, or standing by the point anyway, that the British government point that he would have been found guilty of certain offences should he have been actually taken to a full trial. Now you got a little bit of the video here. Thanks very much to Drew from LetMeLook.tv who sent us a little bit of this. So people are very happy outside the court this morning. Now we're going to have a little bit more video from Drew later on, and we'll see how the freedom of speech aspect of this has played out. But Brian, the judge at this point absolutely not letting go this idea that somehow Julian Assange has done something wrong.
Yes. Well, they don't want to let him loose.
No.
At the end of the day, he's trapped within the system, and they don't want to let him go. And he's on one level. We've got David Noakes and Lynn Thayer still in prison in France as a result of trying to help people sick with cancer. But they're trapped in the system as well. They don't want to let them go. So it's not clear cut, is it?
No. So let's look at what else Bretzer said. Faced with the conditions of near total isolation without the protective factors which limited his risk at Belmarsh, I'm satisfied the procedures described by the United States will not prevent Mr. Assange from finding a way to commit suicide. So this is the excuse they've used for withholding the extradition. The US is apparently going to appeal this, and then the question is what happens? Will he be kept in prison during that appeal? Well, there has been apparently a bail application made by his defence team. That bail hearing will be on Wednesday, again at the Old Bailey. But here's what John Pilger had to say about this. Julian Assange has been discharged by the judge at the Old Bailey on grounds that he was too great a suicide risk if extradited to the US. This is wonderful. It's a face-saving cover for the British to justify their disgraceful political trial of Assange on America's behalf. And I think that's absolutely right. Well, Glenn Greenwald said the rejection by the UK court of the US government's request to extradite Julian Assange to stand trial on espionage charges is obviously great news, but the judge endorsed most of the US government's theories, ultimately found the US prison system too inhumane to permit extradition.
I just wonder, Mike, whether they're not doing it at the moment because they don't want to hand that to Trump. Might this situation change with the Biden in post, I wonder?
No, it's unlikely to change in the sense that they're still determined to prosecute with Biden, but Trump definitely has the ability to offer a pardon as he leaves office, if he leaves office, and we'll come on to that a little bit later on. But David, welcome to the programme. Happy New Year to you. What do you make of this situation?
It seems very familiar. We've seen it before. The the line seems to go like this. We're not going to give you justice. You can't have justice. But if it looks too egregious, if it smells too bad, we'll find some excuse to give you something that might satisfy you, might feel like justice. As long as you give up the principles, as long as you surrender that there is no justice, that there is no freedom of speech, as long as you surrender your liberty, we might have mercy if we paint you crazy or some other such excuse, until it doesn't suit us anymore. So just give up your rights, and then depending on how it looks, depending upon the press coverage and the political tone at the time, we may or may not grant you a little reprieve.
Well, let's have a look at what's already the situation in the UK with respect to freedom of speech, because we have a little bit of video here. Again, thank you very much to Drew from Let Me Look TV for this. Have a listen. You may have to listen quite carefully to what's being said here, but have a listen to this. This is somebody outside the Assange trial, an independent journalist, not mainstream media, but nonetheless, this was the reaction of the police to his presence.
Please just go. I'm asking you now to go back to your residence. Go back to your place. Go back to your place of residence.
Listen,
you've said to me today. Listen to me. Listen to me. You have said to me today. You have said, and it's on body-worn camera, that you have said you're expressing your freedom of speech.
Let the world see this.
Okay. So
that one man has come out to exercise.
Doesn't matter.
And to exercise his vocal cords and to exercise.
You're talking absolute nonsense.
To exercise his right to free speech.
You're not allowed to
say that what.
Did you hear that, David? He was there to exercise.
You're not allowed to say that.
Yeah, so he says he was there.
He's not allowed to say it. He cannot utter the words. Wow.
So that's City of London Police, and that was outside the Assange trial this morning, the Assange hearing. Well, it went on. The police then went on basically to threaten this person further, saying that they were expecting more people to turn up later in the day. This was about, I believe, about 8 o'clock this morning. So they were expecting more people to turn up later in the day. They said if they saw him again, amongst other people, that he would be arrested. And so it went on. But that was City of London Police, and you have no right to free speech in the City of London. That's it.
So we're getting a better idea as to where we are. While we let you think about that, David, I think I may have shown this little video clip before, but I'm going to show it at the start of 2021 because what does it show? Well, it shows people fighting back a little bit on free speech. So this is a bit of film. It's the M57 out of Liverpool, which was sent in, and the key bit is coming up on your screen now. If you missed it, what was it? Well, it was the plandemic, which we need clearly to talk about because plandemic has just controlled our Christmas, given us what Boris Johnson described as a blue Christmas, but essentially meant that Christmas, I think, is well on its way now to being crushed, to being wiped out. I think that's what the plan was. But we've got more to come, Mike.
Absolutely, because here's Boris. He's saying this morning that there's no question this year is going to be tough, and tough weeks to come, more restrictions. There's no question it's going to be stricter measures in due course. That basically the new variant, whatever that means, is so significantly stronger in terms of our number than everything that's come before, that we're going to have to lock down. The tier system just isn't working enough. We're going to have to lock down even further. So apparently on Sunday, the UK recorded more than 50,000 new confirmed COVID cases. And we'll come on to the issue of confirmation of COVID cases a little bit more in a minute. But that's over 50,000 new confirmed cases for the 6th day in a row, according to the BBC and other propagandists out there. Matt Hancock was on the Today programme this morning. He said that the old tier system no longer strong enough to contain the spread of the virus, and so we're going to have to put even stricter lockdown in place. Now, I was just speaking to somebody this morning who has just come off another 2 or 3 weeks of furlough. Extremely concerned that this new lockdown is going to put him straight back into furlough again. And of course concerned that while his company has been very good to him and has been giving him his full salary at this point, that they may not be able to keep that up as the coming weeks and months progress. Well, that's where we are.
That's where we are. Well, where's it come from? Thank you very much to a number of people who said to us, I hope the UK column early in next year is going to be looking at what Sage has been up to. So we followed that through. This is more or less some on-air analysis. And David, if you want to come in on this, please do. So what we've got is the 74th Sage meeting on COVID-19. That was held on the 22nd of December. Last year via video teleconference. This is to make it all appear as though they're behaving themselves under the rules. Wanted to take our audience through this reasonably quickly. There's a lot here, but there's not a lot here. There's a lot of words, there's a lot of sentences and paragraphs are there, but when you actually come to the substance, it's thin on the ground. But here was the situation update, and it started off with our estimates continue to increase and are clearly above 1 in London, the Midlands, the South East and the East of England. Now in these, which are minutes released to the general public, there's no documentary evidence to support any of these claims. There's no statistics or anything, but it's going on saying its concerning estimates have now also moved above 1 in the southwest of England, where capacity to cope with increased hospital admissions is more limited. Well, we haven't been hearing any major stress from hospitals in the southwest, and we're going to talk a bit more about hospitals a little bit later on. But it goes on to say here, doubling time estimates are currently very heterogeneous, likely reflecting a changing situation, but in some smaller areas are as short as a week. So the key bit there, that the R estimates continue to increase and are clearly above 1 in London, but there's no evidence to support that at all. So David, with a little bit of your engineering analytical mind, I don't know whether you want to comment on that opening statement, but it seems these are words on paper. They sort of sound good, but when you start to say, what are they really saying, it all begins to fall apart.
It's witchcraft, but it's not really very good witchcraft. The capacity to cope in London and the southeast, in the part of the hospitals, is more limited. I love that one. So we can't get away with saying we've no capacity to cope, because people would just snigger, because we've all seen the videos of the empty hospitals, and we can't lock up everyone who's put them up, although we've locked up some people. So we have to admit that there is capacity in the hospitals, because people know the figures. In fact, there's more capacity in the hospitals than there was last year. So we can't lie about that, because people have the numbers. So we're going to compare London and the southeast to the rest of the country and say the capacity is more limited, which is completely meaningless. But it sounds right. It sounds like there's a problem. This is all they've got. Matt Hancock, is this all you've got?
It is it is all he's got, and let's look more at what you've described as witchcraft. It's certainly wordcraft. Here's paragraph 2, and it says that those R estimates rely on lagged data and cannot yet account for the most recent impact of policy changes or any changes in transmission that have not yet been reflected in epidemiological data. So we're not quite sure what's going on here.
Well, this is really pushing the narrative that because the statistics, or because the effect of infection follows 2 or 3 weeks after the positive test result or the positive infection, then they can't really know exactly how things are. So it's just an estimate. But of course, I haven't seen any mention of how this data is being gathered in the first place. Is there any real estimate on the false positive rate of PCR tests in this?
Well, not for this group, because they're ignoring that. But yeah, good point there, Mike. The other end sentence there, changes in testing behaviours also increase the uncertainty. Changes in testing behaviours also increase the uncertainty. So the behaviours that they've given us to follow, they haven't tested, but that's changing uncertainty around the virus. I've read some of this several times. I find it very difficult to get my head around what they're actually saying. And this isn't scientific language. This is just trying to work out what they're doing with the words on the page. Let's go on to 3. It says that NervTag and Public Health England have assessed the currently available evidence on the new variant and have published their assessments and evidence. And then we're suddenly into a different sort of language, because now there is a high confidence that this variant is spreading faster than other SARS-CoV-2. But as you were saying, if the testing is not reliable, how do they actually know this? Well, these are the words on the page, and at the bottom, what does it say? There is some evidence that the variant is more likely to transmit within households. Now, I thought that was a very convenient statement with where they're going, but how did they work that out? So is this pre-agreed lockdown policy? The government wants to increase lockdown, so in their meeting they throw in a sentence that there is also some evidence that the variant is more likely to transmit within households. You haven't really got any evidence, but you put a sentence in the minutes so that it makes it appear as though you do.
Well, that is actually a very important sentence, because of course, I can't remember what date you said, 22nd, that one. The day after that, there was a meeting of Spy B, which of course is the behavioural crowd within SAGE. And they were absolutely pushing the narrative, or that they were suggesting that the narrative that needed to be pushed was the requirement to wear masks inside your homes, inside any enclosed space, including your household. And so this is the next narrative which is going to come.
Right, so now we can see that the first meeting really didn't have any evidence to support that, but you're now showing that that was grabbed by the Spy B behavioural team, and that's now being implemented in more draconian lockdown policy.
And of course, that's exactly how this whole thing works. There's no evidence for it. Somebody says it, whether it be a politician or the media, and then other politicians and other media repeat that. And that validates the original unverified, untested information. Yes.
Okay.
And they criticise social media for doing this sort of thing.
Right. So on to the next 3 paragraphs, 4, 5, and 6. Number 4, we've got, it's not yet known whether there is a difference in generation time or duration of the infectious period. So they don't really know about this vaccine. That's that one. Number 5, there's sorry, not the vaccine, the virus, virus. Number 5, there's not yet any evidence which suggests a different disease course from other variants. Now, I found this was quite interesting, because in this document there is no mention at all about an increased death rate. And in a moment, David, I'm going to come on to what actually the risk is that all of this is about, because they don't really say what the risk is. But 6, it says it's not yet clear whether the faster spread observed with this variant is consistent across age groups, or if there's a greater increase in transmission relative to other variants in some age groups. So it's not yet known, there's not yet any evidence, it's not yet clear. There's nothing here. David, there is nothing of substance in this report.
Nothing of substance. But that's no problem, because we've got a solution to that. It's called the precautionary principle. Now, what the precautionary principle is, if you put forward some evidence, it might be anecdotal, it might be poorly conceived, it might be poorly gathered, not peer-reviewed, or not able to stand up to scrutiny, but it is nonetheless some evidence that there's a problem. Under the precautionary principle, there could be a problem. So we have to act now to avoid the problem. So the precautionary principle says we will destroy society to save society. And all we need is some evidence. Doesn't matter how bad it is. It doesn't matter how illogical it is. It doesn't matter how laughable it is. It's still some evidence, and that's all we need. And apart from that, it's just very sad that the actor Andrew Sachs, who played Manuel in Fawlty Towers, is no longer with us, because he could have had a second career, a sort of Indian summer career as a government spokesman, saying, "I know nothing," over and over.
Okay, well, let's go on. I think we're getting the flavour of this document. The whole thing is complete nonsense and needs to be treated. So 7, whilst it's theoretically possible that mutations might alter immune recognition, this is currently considered low probability on the available evidence. This is so wishy-washy as to be incredible. Current rates of vaccination are unlikely to significantly change the epidemiology in the near future, though this would change if rates increase as planned. And that is talking about the planned increase in vaccination rates. 8, it says there's currently no evidence of any association between the new variant and increases in transmission in particular settings, e.g. hospitals and care homes. So we don't know anything about this virus, but we're able to say, well, on one hand, we've said that it can spread more easily in households, but on the other hand, oh no, it's not going to spread more easily in hospitals and care homes. How do they know that?
Well, I guess they must know that this variant of corona is even more intelligent than the original variant of corona, and knows that if it's in a care home, it isn't any more virulent, whereas in a private home it is. It knows which kind of home it's in.
So when it steps into the normal home, little corona changes, puts on a particularly unpleasant demeanour, attacks all the people, but when corona goes into the care homes and the hospitals, where we got people particularly susceptible, then actually he's quite a cuddly little teddy bear virus.
Yes.
Okay, it's looking reasonable. 9, here's 9. It's important for public health that data on the sensitivity of tests to the new variant, including lateral flow devices, are publicly available. Okay, Public Health England reported that LFDs detect the variant with similar sensitivity to wild-type virus. But isn't it a wild-type virus?
Well, you may think that in the sense,
or is it a manufactured Chinese virus?
This is the question. This is the question. Is it? How has this variant arrived? But the key, what I noticed earlier on, Brian, there is that in earlier paragraphs it was talking about variants with an S on the end, and now we're back to saying the variant. Now we know that they're claiming 2 variants. This is this new variant from the UK and also a variant from South Africa. But of course, many other variants have there been over the last 9 months. I think it's something like 7 or 8.
And we're consistently told that viruses mutate in the course of their natural progression.
So this suggestion that this new variant is something different to a wild-type virus seems, well, I can't really think what the word might be. Disingenuous, doesn't go quite far enough.
It's heading there. Let's go for 9. So, 9 and 10. If we just pop this back on screen, here's 10. Existing mitigation measures, e.g. social distancing, ventilation, hand hygiene and mask usage remain important. But given the increase in risk associated with the new variant, a commensurate strengthening in the measures taken, rather than a need for different measures, may be needed, i.e. greater use of all these mitigations. There's no evidence for differences in routes of transmission or different survival on surfaces. So I'm just going to highlight the bit here, given the increase in risk associated. But what is the risk? And I'll come back to you on this one, David, because in this document, there is no defined risk of anything. Is it risk of catching it and you test positive and that's a bit inconvenient? Or is it that you catch it and the next minute you're dead and you're carted out in a coffin? There is no risk identified in the document. So this whole document is false and should be disregarded. It's mind-boggling.
99 times out of 100, Brian, risk is a meaningless term because risk is the combination of a probability of an event and the consequence of that event. Probability has 2 definitions. Under the International Standards Organization, there's 2 definitions. It's either a long-term, observable, statistical recurrence of an event measured between 0 and 1, or it's a belief. And those two terms are both in the standard and they're interchangeable. There's a risk, Brian, because Spy B believes there's a risk. Their belief has made the risk spontaneously come into being. They have thought it into our lives. It is no more substantial than that.
Sounds like the Bank of England and money, David.
Okay.
That one later.
Yeah.
On to 11 then. We're just about through this now, but we thought the detail was important. Number 11, it's highly unlikely that measures with stringency and adherence in line with the measures in England in November, i.e. with schools open, will be sufficient to maintain R below 1 in the presence of the new variant. R would be lower with schools closed, with closure of secondary schools likely to have a greater effect than closure of primary schools. It remains difficult to distinguish where transmission between children takes place, and it is important to consider contacts made outside of schools. Again, if you actually read this and consider what's being said, nothing is being said. This is playing with words. It's extraordinary. So let's put in, again, what they have admitted, that it's not yet known, there's not yet any evidence, it's not yet clear, and they know nothing about the strain, they don't define the risk, they don't understand how the new variant is spreading, yet we need more lockdown because it is highly unlikely that existing measures would work. So we're going to be locked down because that's what the government wanted them to find before they sat down in their meeting. It goes on here, 12, the introduction of Tier 4 measures in England combined with the school holidays will be informative of the strength of measures required to control the new variant, but analysis of this will not be possible until mid-July. Mid-January. So they are quite happy to say that they're going to trial this stuff in order to see whether it actually tells them. So you're going to be locked up in your house in order for the SAGE team in a few weeks' time to see whether that did anything meaningful. But they've already said in their document it won't do anything meaningful because this thing has mutated and has now become deadly corona. On it goes, the potential for the new variant to increase transmission, adherence to interventions will remain critical, other variants and mutations. And then we've got to get really worried now because there's a special South African variant. That's probably poisonous as well, I think. And who are the people? Well, these are the people that we're going to suggest to our audience today. We really need to be focusing in on these individuals. Who are they? What are their interests? Who's paying them? Where are the vested interests? These are the people that need to be named and shamed, because they are locking us down with no evidence. And this organisation also gets a mention in the document under those present Government Office for Science. And many of the individuals coming from the Government Office for Science were actually blacked out. So we presume this is all tied in with national security. Why do they want the security? Because they don't want the public to understand that, I'm going to use the term scam, this is a scam. On one of the names was this lady. I've just put her name on screen to show that you can follow these individuals through. And I think that she was tied in with one of the pharmaceutical companies, Zeneca, I think, at one stage. So it's very interesting to follow the route through to see who the people are making these crass decisions and what their allegiances are.
You said the words used were deadly virus. Well, we should remember that whenever Matt Hancock initially announced this new variant, which saw borders being closed and flights being stopped between Britain and other European countries and other countries around the world, he said that while it was more infectious, it was much less deadly. So again, why are we locking down tighter? If this is more infectious but significantly less deadly, then what is the problem?
I'm going to suggest there is no problem. This is a political tool in order to change the nature of the country, which we're now seeing happen in front of our eyes.
Well, let's head north of the border and lock down David and the Courier here, saying that the police used coronavirus laws to intervene over 9,000 times in Tayside and Fife last year. Is that from effectively March or until the present?
Yes, yes. So the population of Tayside and Fife is about 770,000. So if you take that as indicative of the rest of the UK, I suspect it's probably less common there than the rest of the UK. But let's assume that that's an average. That would equate to, across the UK, 800,000 interactions between the police and the public over coronavirus legislation. Now, it's generally people in groups, sometimes groups of hundreds, but let's say, well, it might be 10, because it's a rule of 6, right? She's allowed 6 for quite a long time. So if the average number of people that the police are interacting with was, say, 10, that would give you 8 million. We're talking about a very sizable proportion of the United Kingdom population, maybe something like an eighth, have actually been threatened by the police over this. So it's not just the government's endless scare stories. It's not just the BBC and their accomplices constantly talking about fear, but actually the police have been directly threatening a very sizable proportion of our population. Now, you would think that Amnesty International might be a little concerned about this, but no. Let me read what they've got to say. And Naomi McAloot, Amnesty International Scottish Programme Director, said, "We are living in extraordinary times, and Amnesty International recognises the need for necessary and proportionate measures to prevent and control the spread of endemic disease at the core of our right to health." So you see, we're being locked down to protect our rights. That's why our rights are being removed. Our rights are being removed in order to protect our rights. It's Orwellian. She continues, "However, we have been clear from the outset of the emergency period that measures which amount to restrictions or limitations on other rights enjoyed by people, not possessed, enjoyed by people in the UK and Scotland, the UK and Scotland, okay, that's interesting, must be compatible with international rights standards." That's an interesting phrase as well. That means, amongst other requirements, the emergency measures must be of a duration strictly limited to the needs of the situation. With a straight face, she says this, subject to review, and risks to rights must be mitigated. Risks to rights must be mitigated. What is this woman on? She added, Police Scotland's use of temporary powers has been independently assessed and found to be fair and legal. So there we go, Amnesty International. Everything's fine. There's nothing to see here. We're all of our rights to speak publicly, to assemble, to leave our homes, to go about our business, all gone. Amnesty International says, no, it's fine. It's okay. Amnesty International motto is the very inspiring, better to light a candle than curse the darkness. Now, I'm suggesting here that this needs to be changed because candles are a fire risk and the precautionary principle applies. And candles are dangerous. We can't just go about having everyone lighting candles. These people are untrained. They're not being supervised by the state. This random lighting of candle stuff has got to stop. So Amnesty International needs to change that. Something to endorse darkness, I think, would be more appropriate, given their current policy.
And of course, we need just to reinforce the fact that Amnesty International, very quick to point fingers at countries overseas, warning that they're dictatorships, that there's arrests and no justice, people being beaten on the streets. That's what Amnesty International's been talking about for years. But when it starts happening in UK, well, don't worry, because an independent body, probably under the Scottish government, has reviewed the Scottish police and everything's okay. So I think we'll give Amnesty International, I'm creating this on the spot, the 2084, that's the year, 2084 award for sheer hypocrisy. Mm.
Well, let's go on, because the independent review, of course, was someone appointed by Police Scotland, because that's how independence works in Scotland. But let's go to Deputy Chief Constable Malcolm Graham, right? Who looks a lovely chap. Here we see him here, smiling for the camera. So he's talking about the COVID policing. He says, Though the rules have changed often, and at times quickly, officers have used common sense, empathy, and discretion to work with our fellow citizens to help keep everyone safe. Brian, do you have any comments on that one?
No, because I think I should live. I winced as you read those words because actually they make me feel quite sick.
Empathy. So we've got empathy. He continues. They will continue to explain. They, the police, surely we, but anyway, they will continue to explain the rules to the public and encourage people to take personal responsibility and do the right thing. The right thing being defined as exactly what the state says without thinking about it. That's the definition of the right thing under Police Scotland. Where officers encounter willful and persistent breaches, they will act decisively to enforce the law. So we're your friend and we're going to be empathetic, but if you disagree with us, we're going to arrest you and lock you up. That's not how friends behave. That's not empathy. But still. But it's okay, Brian. Don't worry, because I know what you're thinking. This might affect relationships with the police. But no, he continues. It's encouraging that public confidence in policing has increased significantly during this period, and we will always value the bond of trust we have with our fellow citizens. He uses the phrase twice. This, I think, is a very interesting little bit of PR spin. The police are involved in locking down the population. They're imposing rules that are utterly unlawful. I mean, they're completely opposed to everything that this country was built on in terms of law for not only hundreds of years. This goes back a millennium or more, and it's being trashed, and the police are doing it. And the reason that he's on there talking about fellow citizens and empathy is because he is very nervous about what they're doing. He doesn't have any justification for what he's doing that he can bring forward, other than it's policy, other than I am following orders. Because he must know, the same as everyone else knows, that all-cause mortality is basically normal. It's not been a significant increase. He knows, I'm sure better than most people, that the hospitals are not overflowing with COVID patients. And yet he's removing all of our rights. So this conversation about empathy and fellow citizens, this is cover because he's afraid. He's afraid of what this is going to do to policing. And I think he's right to be afraid.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, and what is being built, a prison is being built in this country, and who ends up in that prison? Well, maybe we all do, but we'll certainly say future generations are going to end up in that prison, and the children of the police in this country, their own parents, their fathers, their mothers who work with the police are helping to build that prison system. And I think that's the saddest thing. Has this man really got no courage, no guts to actually stand up and say what the government is pushing is wrong? Is he such a coward? Is he so afraid, David? You know, where's the Braveheart spirit? Clearly not in the Scottish police.
Or anywhere else in any branch of the state. One of the things that we're going to have, we'll talk about this later in the programme, the compliance of every state official with this. There is sufficient fear because they know it means their job. The career's gone, the job's gone. If he was to stand up and say, I have concerns about this, instant suspension, disciplinary, end of career, if not actually jail time. I mean, he knows he would be toast. Now, he doesn't maybe think that they would get support, and of course he would. But he's been busy forcing down the ability of the population to provide support and resistance to tyranny. So maybe he doesn't think that would help him. This is the trap the police and others will get themselves in. They're going to destroy the very people, institutions, organizations that would actually be there for them if they decided to stand up and tell the truth. So they're building their own cage.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's see who else is building a cage. Here's Public Health England. Now, on one of the Public Health England pages, it says quite clearly, registered medical practitioners in England and Wales have a statutory duty to notify their local authority or local health protection team of suspected cases of certain infectious diseases. Now, David, just let me begin by asking you, when you see the words that they have a statutory duty, do you see that as an optional thing?
No, that would be they're employed by the state. They would have absolutely no choice in the matter.
No choice in the matter. That is how I read that as well. So keep that in mind as we progress through this little section. So statutory duty to notify their local authority. Now, many people have been commenting on the fact that Public Health England produces a notifiable infectious diseases weekly report, and many people pushing around this particular issue of it, the statutory notifications of infectious diseases in England and Wales, week 2020/51. So this is the week ending the 20th of December 2020. And there were a total of 50 COVID-19 notifications in that week. Well, many people questioning why this figure is so different to the figure that we see in the mainstream press for the number of people that are testing positive for COVID-19 or have COVID-19. I mean, this certainly would not imply that the hospitals are overflowing. You know, the question is, why the disparity in the numbers? Well, I asked Public Health England about this, and this was their response. They said COVID-19 cases are identified through more than one route, which reduces the reliance on a single system of clinical notification. Notifications of infectious disease reports are simply one relatively minor route for clinicians to report suspected cases of COVID-19, which may or may not be subsequently confirmed. So before I just complete this little statement from Public Health England, I don't see that this position is compatible with the other position, David, of suggesting that something which is statutorily required is therefore relatively minor.
Is this the difference between positive PCR tests and actual cases? I mean, things with symptoms requiring medical attention. Is that what we're seeing here?
This is the question, and it's completely not clear. And the statement from Public Health England isn't giving us any clue. So just to finish off, what it says, that the numbers from that document do not in any way represent a total number of confirmed cases. The national total for confirmed positive cases is published daily on the government's COVID-19 dashboard. So this statement from Public Health England gives me no clue as to what the figures, you know, if that document, if the notification of infectious diseases document is so low-key and so unimportant, and why is it even published at all under these circumstances when the government has the COVID-19 dashboard? It seems to me that there is a massive disparity between the figures that are appearing in that document, and those figures are as a result of a statutory requirement to notify, and therefore clinicians, GPs, do not have an option about whether they notify it. They can't choose to notify one way rather than the other. It seems to me that is a statutory requirement, and therefore if they've got multiple routes for notification, they've got to notify via them all. Otherwise, what is the point of the statute?
Well, this is very interesting. I wonder if confirmed positive cases is something different, is a different definition from the traditional definition of a case, because positive would imply PCR test positive, which is a different thing entirely. It's very suspicious. It's it does seem to make sense though, in that there is an enormous difference between the stats that we are being fed by the state and the real nature of the problem. And these figures that you've got there, where it's clinical notifications, seem to be more in line with what we're seeing as the real nature of the problem, the real scale of the problem, which is of course a fraction of the hype and the propaganda and the message coming from the state.
Any thoughts?
Well, I'm afraid I was going to cynically say I'm sure that David isn't doubting that the British government would tell the truth to the population about this thing. I think the British government is lying over these figures. I think they've consistently lied. The lie is usually carried out by spin. It's twisting of data rather than direct falsification. It's how you present the data, how it's twisted. But we are, to be crude about it, we're not seeing the coffins coming out of houses, which if we had a full pandemic running, we would see the death everywhere. And of course, nobody's seeing the death. Yeah, there are tragic cases of people dying inside hospitals and care homes, but out in the wider public, we are simply not seeing the bodies coming out the houses. So there cannot be a pandemic by a simple analysis of what we're seeing.
Okay, well, I'm very happy I was asked to push this particular organisation, the UK Medical Freedom Alliance. I'm very happy to do that because I think what they've done here is given people exactly what they've been asking, which is template letters. So this is a group of GPs, other doctors, a lawyer or two, and they're calling themselves Professionals Supporting Medical Choice and Informed Consent. They've got a broader group of people giving them advice. Well, the first open letter here is the open letter to the MHRA, JCVI and Matt Hancock regarding the COVID-19 vaccine rollout. And they're saying that they outlined their concerns that a rushed rollout of any COVID-19 vaccine may compromise safety, especially as many of the vaccines are using a completely novel technology. We present evidence that suggests that the mortality and morbidity from SARS-CoV-2 is no longer an existential threat to society. We argue that the morbidity and mortality impact on public health from SARS-CoV-2 must be balanced with the risks and costs of a vaccine rollout. We set out the legal and moral obligation to ensure that enough information about risks and benefits of the vaccine is available to allow people to give fully informed consent. And we would like to encourage our supporters to send a copy of this letter to their MP. And I think this is a very good idea. And I would like to encourage people to do the same. There's a second letter here, and this is the open letter to Education Minister on mass testing in schools. This was published just before Christmas, and they're saying, in light of the government press releases on the 15th and 17th of December outlining a policy of mass testing of all secondary school children before they can return to schools in January 2021, they have sent a fully referenced open letter to Gavin Williamson, the Department for Education and the Department for Health and Social Care to outline their concerns relating to informed consent, the validity of the tests and the lack of evidence for asymptomatic spread of SARS-CoV-2. And again, they say, please share far and wide, including MPs and schools and head teachers. And I would absolutely encourage everybody to do this as well. The letters in both cases are extremely well written. They're fully evidenced. If you would prefer to go ahead and take that evidence and write your own letter, then that would be probably even better. But nonetheless, as it stands, these are exactly the kind of thing many people have been asking for. Get them out.
Yeah, because we can have an effect if enough people are doing these things, is the key bit.
But David, the Pope has been busy.
Pope's written a book. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds like the book Obama wrote, but it's different, slightly. It's called Let Us Dream. And
yes.
It's called Let Us Dream. The Holy Father of Fraternity, writes The Guardian. The Guardian like this. In reflections written during lockdown, the pontiff adds his weight to a growing group of people seeking a return to community-minded values. So there you go, Brian. You've been warning about communitarianism for all these years, and the Pope's not been listening to you. He's behind the communitarian push. So the Guardian goes on quoting the book. This is the moment to dream big, he writes, to rethink our priorities, what we value, what we want, what we seek, and commit to act in our daily life on what we have dreamed of. So this is, of course, the Great Reset. This is the Pope is now pushing the Great Reset. Very interesting. So the Guardian continues, but this book should be read as a work of prophecy. This is the Guardian we're reading here. Prophecy and hope rather than analysis. In the final section, Francis writes that COVID has taught us that, quote, no one is saved alone. Now, this is very interesting. Theologically, we might discuss this in extra time. I would say that Pope Francis doesn't appear to know that people are saved by the blood of the Lamb, and group activity has really nothing to do with it. But here we go. That knowledge demands a new politics of inclusion. He believes it equips us to both avoid excessive individualism and the aggressive populism that thrives on identifying enemies at home and abroad. Fraternity, the Pope insists, is the new frontier, capable of knitting together the often competing demands of liberty and equality. He continues, without the we of a people, Francis writes, of a family, of institutions, of a society that transcends the eye of the individual interest, we are left with a battle for supremacy between factions and interests. Now, this is, of course, a projection. This is accusing your opponents of the thing that you are yourself guilty of, because he's coming here from a social justice warrior perspective. This is identity politics. This is group identity. And that is the pitting of one group against the other. It's a battle for supremacy between factions and interests. That's the very thing that the left-wing politics that he's pushing has in fact promoted. And here he's saying, well, we need more of this in order to protect us from the thing itself. He's projecting the thing that he is guilty of onto the opposing viewpoint. So that's a very interesting bit of, well, we said witchcraft before, but it's the same sort of thing. It's using words to create an impression that's entirely false.
Well, all I wanted to say is I smiled at The Guardian because a few days earlier, The Guardian had a very interesting editorial article in which it bemoaned the fact that Christians were a real nuisance in all sorts of ways, but there was a new liberal Christianity emerging, and you could be a proper Christian, a liberal Christian, as long as you supported abortion. So if we're murdering babies in the womb, you're a good Christian, and you can buy your Guardian with confidence. Sorry to be a bit cynical there.
Yes, but if you have any nasty opinions about individual liberty, freedom, or perhaps the struggle for liberty that this country has led for hundreds, if not thousands of years, the Pope will be saddened by that. You'll make the Pope sad. You don't want to do that, right? Make the Pope sad. Mail Online here, the Pope said he's saddened by COVID rule breakers. So, see, if you give your granny a hug, you make the Pope sad. Who are ignoring travel restrictions during the pandemic as he condemns people after looking after their own interests above others. So, this is a complete sellout to the lie. It's amazing how much one lie that COVID's a deadly pandemic, and that you're by behaving normally, you're forming a serious existential risk to everyone around you. Buying that lie transforms everything into the lie. It's lies are viruses, and the Pope's testing positive.
Yes, very good. And if that's the Pope, what about Godfrey Bloom?
Now, from one extreme to the other, Godfrey Bloom is a national treasure, let's face it. And he's been speaking out on things as well. And he says, on mask wearing, the mask has nothing to do with health. It is about a facial flag of surrender to the mighty state, a modern form of yellow star. That is the uncompromising language that we've grown to know and love from Godfrey Bloom, and is, of course, correct. We know that masks don't do anything for your health. They might actually be harmful. We don't know exactly the extent of that, but we know they don't help. They don't cut down your risk of infection. You're not any safer. And what are they? They are a means of saying that I'm surrendering to the state. I do not resist. I'm complying. Don't hurt me. I'm complying.
Yeah, don't hurt me.
And of course, we have to add to that, since he's mentioned the yellow star. What he's also saying, of course, is the state is changing. It's becoming a brutal dictatorship, and I think the evidence for that is all there. I think we might have a little video clip in a second, but I wanted to just bring this lady up on screen. Debbie Hicks. Many people commented over the last few days. This lady who took a camera, dared to take a camera into Gloucester Hospital, and as she walked around, she filmed emptiness. And she found this very strange, since hospitals are at full capacity, they can barely cope. But as a result of that, she was arrested, handcuffed, accused of being mentally ill, and eventually had the police effectively pressurising, harassing her after she'd been released to sign a bail form. They tried to get her husband to sign that form. And what we're seeing is really brutal behaviour. Why? Because she took a camera inside a hospital. Are we able to show any of that?
Yeah, what do you want? You want to see the footage from the hospital itself? Yeah,
we just show a little bit of the hospital, and then we should have a little segment showing the police in her house, just to get a measure of what democracy is like in Boris Johnson's Conservative UK at the moment.
Empty hospital, look at it. This is a disgrace. I've never seen, oh my God, look at this. It is so dead. Please do not sit here. Yeah, not much chance of that, is there? All the people in our country desperately waiting for treatment, cancer treatment, heart disease. Look at this. Honestly, this is making me so angry walking around here. This is making me angry. Share the hell out of this guy's truth. Look at the truth here. Do not come back to this place with bullshit when there's a completely empty hospital I'm walking around. I'm so angry.
So I encourage you to go and have a look at that video, because it goes on for a couple more minutes. She walks around several areas of the hospital. She looks in locked doors at wards which are empty and locked up. And the main foyer of the hospital is virtually deserted, apart from a couple of elderly ladies that walk out at one stage. A&E just has 2 or 3 people sitting there, but you can hear the echo in those corridors. There's no people in the floors that in the corridors that she's going on, or in the wards that she's looking into. The hospital is echoing with emptiness. Let's look at this next clip, which is just a quick look at the police arriving at her house early in the morning to arrest her. She's in a dressing gown.
And go.
You've got plenty of room, haven't they?
You're treating me like a criminal. I'm a criminal. Will you take these handcuffs off?
Listen.
Deb,
can you ask him to put some clothes on underneath? Just go and put some clothes on and we'll get his custody,
What sort
okay?
of society is this when you come into a woman's house outside her bedroom door and intimidate her with no clothing on?
This is your last chance.
What sort of society is
Go
this?
put some clothes on for me, please, alright?
Look at you, you're behaving like a Nazi. Look at you. Look at yourself.
Right.
Look at yourself.
Deb, don't push him anymore.
Just
Keep your hands down to your side
And
for
do
me,
not
please.
stand outside my bedroom door.
Go and get dressed for me,
Wait
please,
down
Debbie.
there
No, I'll
in my
wait here.
house.
I'll wait here,
Wait
please.
down there.
Deb, we put some clothes on, otherwise you're going to go like that.
You're not.
Deb,
You should not stand
I'm not
outside a
going to give you
woman's.
another opportunity. Go and get dressed for me,
Do
please.
not come
I'm
near
trying to
my
be polite.
bedroom.
I'm not
Do
going
not
to
come near
bedroom.
my bedroom.
I'm not going to.
Well, I'll just say, David, if the police in Scotland are carrying out a policy of loving the public, then that same policy is certainly going on here in England. So they arrived to arrest her. They did arrest her, handcuffed her, took her away. Obviously, she had to get dressed there. She managed to get herself into her bedroom to get dressed. But the police didn't appear to have any form of arrest warrant. So she's taken back to the police station. She is questioned, but because she refused to answer questions, they then suggest that perhaps she's got mental health issues, and they bring in a lady from a charity. I'm afraid I've forgotten the name of the charity concerned, but it would appear to be a mental health charity. They bring a supposedly responsible person into the interview room to sit down with Debbie. She said the whole experience was truly disgusting. But what crime did she commit? She took a camera into an NHS hospital. Just give you a 10-second response on that. We're watching the clock at the moment.
What was the charge? What, telling the truth? Was that what do you actually get charged with in Britain these days for speaking the truth and going into a building which you allegedly own as a member of the public, bothering no one, and simply recording the condition of that building at the time? What charge?
Well, look, the first point on ownership, of course, we don't own these buildings because most of them have been built under some kind of public finance initiative, contract, where there's still outstanding debt on the building with the contractor. So we don't own these buildings. They're considered private land, and I've seen other similar videos, David. There's one from Croydon Hospital, for example, where the police are saying to the guy with the camera, "You're on private land." So this is considered private land. Many people believe it to be public land, but it's not.
We're being told in the chat box that it was claimed it was a public order offence at the time, but it's certainly unclear as to what they were really doing. I think it was outright intimidation. Go round to her house, shake her up early in the morning, arrest her. So let's bring in the duck. What's the significance between the police arresting a lady in a dressing gown and a duck? Well, I think I can convince you. If it looks like a duck, swims like a duck and quacks like a duck, then it probably is a duck. Should we pay attention to this? I think we should. So let's look at the UK democracy duck. First of all, we've got lockdown. We've got state restrictions on family gatherings. We've got state restrictions on social gatherings. We've got state controls as to who can stay in your own home. Elderly relatives are now forcibly taken from family protection and held in state-controlled care homes. State travel controls have been enforced. State border controls are enforced. State control of the media is clearly happening. Public free speech gatherings are unlawful. We've seen a video clip about that in this news. State police brutalise, arrest, detain and intimidate the population. Security services used against the people. Army employed on the streets. And mental health and psychiatric system is used to humiliate, intimidate and detain. So that is the UK democracy duck. But if we change one word on your screen, everything else changes. So it's two words. Let's change lockdown and replace it with curfew. And the moment we do that and look at all those other state restrictions, we know that the duck that we're really looking at is a police state duck in UK. Mike, it's evident there's been a coup. There's been a silent coup in UK. We are no longer in any form of democracy. Every single one of those rules is real. It's happening. You were unable to travel at Christmas as a result of these travel and border restrictions. We're living in a dictatorship, a police state.
Absolutely. And David, just very briefly, I mean, this has happened one step at a time. We've slowly and surely got it accelerated during 2020. But when you see that list, you see how far Britain has come. And you've made the point several times in this program already. This is unrecognizable as the nation that created common law and our constitution. We are no longer that country.
That was exactly what I was thinking when I first saw the video of the lady you just showed getting arrested. I'd seen her video of the hospital, and then I saw her getting arrested and the policeman acting in the way he was acting, and I thought, my good grief, this is Britain. We're British. We're putting up with this. We're doing this to ourselves. It's stunning, and we're going to have to wake up as a nation, as a people. We are going to have to wake up, because this is going to get worse and worse and worse until we do.
It is indeed. What are we going to do? It's 2:05.
I think we should certainly put our advert up.
Well, we should, yes. Okay, let's do that. So if you like what the UK column's doing and you would like to support us, then please do join the community and help us out. Go to ukcolumn.org/community, and there are options to help us out there. And because this is going to be the year of censorship, I'm quite certain of it, we do need you to start sharing our material. So aside from the material that's on our main website, which is ukcolumn.org, do also share the stuff that we push out on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and BitChute. We'll be putting up other locations in the not too distant future, but do share everything from everywhere, and that certainly is going to help because the censorship regime, I think, is not too far down the road.
Not too far down the road at all. I think we should go to the last slide to end the news. We'll save material that we have for an extra in a few minutes.
Yes.
But I think this one is worth looking at. David, it's over to you again on this one. Well spotted. Clearly you had your binoculars.
This is RAF Luton having a laugh. I mean, there is still some British humour floating about the place, and occasionally it's sneaking out. And they've got a photograph here of a Typhoon fighter jet swooping over the road with some cars travelling along below, and the text reads, "Breaking, a Eurovision Typhoon fighter jet has intercepted a car with 4 occupants on the M11 in Chigwell, London, making a non-essential journey during COVID-19 Tier 5 lockdown restrictions." People are laughing at it. Humour's our friend, humour's our weapon, and it is laughable, but it's also serious. Now, that's a video, a tweet there that shows that people are seeing it as it is. Right? It's ridiculous, it's unjustifiable, and it's oppressive, and we should resist. And one of the ways we can resist is showing it with humour.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
With the evidence and facts to back up that humour. We just end finally by saying a very big thank you to everybody who sent us wonderful cards, emails, other communications, thanking us for what we've been doing, hoping that we had a good Christmas break. We have had a good break. We're delighted to be back. And the biggest compliment that you've all given us is the fact that people are saying we don't bother to watch any of the mainstream media anymore. We're coming to UK Column, and what you're providing us with is keeping us sane. And I think that's a tremendous compliment. So thank you very much, and stay with us as we try to expand what we're doing in 2021, also known as 2084. We'll leave it there. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.